if you're the Thunder and you're trying to do this planning, listening to that, how sure are you that you're going to be able to re-sign Paul George this summer?
Well, I think it was a lot of indications that there's a really good chance that he will stay. But obviously at the end of that piece, you saw that he did not leave the door unopened as far as talking about Los Angeles and that being his home. But I think if I'm, OKC, I'm going to go with my gut. My gut is that he is vibing with those guys. They do have a brotherhood. They are playing much better now than they were earlier in the season. And what is the case if he happens to stay the rest of the season? Where do they get to? And then if next year, they add another piece or two, where can they be? Because now that process of getting to know each other is gone. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think right now, I believe everything that he said in that piece, that he really do love playing in OKC. I mean, the fan base is unbelievable. That's an unbelievable city. And he's got two great teammates that he feels he's really vibing with and getting along with. And I think he is curious to see where they can get to. But I think in the back of his mind, this is home. So obviously it's going to be a big decision this summer.
First off, if you're going to do an interview with Rachel Nichols, you're going to get asked the hard questions. She said, I'm going to ask you about Los Angeles. And that is the case. I think he was being honest, and I think you just said it and he said it, the two most important words, which are right now. The free agency situation isn't right now. Mm-hmm. I do think when he gave the answer about building on, I think that was an intuitive answer, because if he were to come to the Lakers, they would pretty much have to clear out a significant part of their team to be able to make room for him. So they would, in some ways, kind of be taking a step back to add him. That is the case with any team that opens up a bunch of cap space. And I think that that's the Thunder's selling point to him. We have Russell Westbrook in his prime signed. We have Carmelo Anthony. We have Steven Adams in his prime signed. That's going to be their pitch to him. Does that have more currency than Los Angeles on July 1st? You don't know. You don't know. Paul doesn't know. This is the issue that we're going to have to go through. And the Thunder are a team that were up 3-1 on the Warriors, thinking that they were in great shape. They lose 3 in a row. They lose Kevin Durant. So they're never going to be comfortable after that situation.
Yeah, and look, I have said a lot of times here on the show, I've said to Paul personally, you don't want to make a decision right now, right?
Absolutely.
Because when he says either or, you may have a feeling you know what the Thunder are or are going to be. You don't know what the Lakers or any other team is going to be. Who else is going to be on the Lakers? Maybe there's another whole team that's a dark horse that we don't know about that's going to be able to offer something because they attract someone else in free agency. So I think that's the big question mark. And again, as you go into Thursday and OKC has to decide, are we going to be a buyer or a seller? What are we going to do? It's a huge risk. You don't know what Paul George is going to do. And of course, a huge factor in that decision is how do the Thunder play the rest of the season?
Absolutely.
Does Sam Presti try to bolster the team? Because Andre Robertson getting knocked out with a knee injury, this is big. We said last week it was going to be big. It has turned out. They are 1-4 since losing their defensive backbone. That national TV loss to the Lakers last week, over the weekend rather, bad. That was yesterday. Byron, take a look at the defensive numbers for the Thunder. Explain how everything on the floor changes for this team without him.
Again, you're talking about one of the premier defensive players in our league, and he can guard multiple positions. He can guard from 1 to 4. And when you can have a guy on the floor like that, you don't have to worry about him on the offensive end. But on the defensive end, when he can make it that much harder on Harden and Griffin, as you saw there, and some of these other primary scorers on teams, when he can make it that much harder on them, it makes it that much easier for them. So when you got a defensive player like Andre on the floor, they can take away one of the best players on the offensive team, scoring load, and make it that much harder, make them work harder. It is really significant because it gives those other guys a chance to just be free, and you don't have to double. That's the other thing in this league. If you don't have to send guys to double team guys and get into rotations, and you can almost play head, straight up, man to man, it makes it that much easier for you on the defensive end as well. We
can clarify this with a statistic that is just amazing.
It's amazing, yeah.
For the last 4 games during this losing streak, when the starters are on the court for the Thunder, which includes now Terrence Ferguson and not Roberson, they're getting outscored by 11 points per 100 possessions. That's what we always do, 100 possessions. Before, with Roberson, they were outscoring the opposition by 14 points. So that means that the difference between having Roberson and not with their starters is 25 points in this stretch. That is extraordinarily significant. It's the difference between having a good team and having a bad team. And Roberson may be the glue. He may not be the driver, but he is the glue. And that's why I think they're going to have to do something.
Well, so this is the question. When they went into the season, everyone was like, ooh, the trade deadline is going to be really significant because if it's not working out with Paul George, the Thunder might want to deal Paul George, be a seller here, because, hey, they want to get something, and they don't want to have a Kevin Durant situation where they let a superstar leave without getting anything. Then things gelled for them, and it was like, no, 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 they would never deal Paul George before the trade deadline. Instead, they want to pick up a little piece or whatever. Andre goes out. Now they have to pick up a big piece. They have to take even a bigger gamble that he is going to stay with them. Tim Bontemps of the Washington Post reporting they want Avery Bradley now. Do you like that fit, and do you like what you think they're going to have to give up to get him?
Again, I'll simplify this. It's called being in for a dime, in for a dollar. They're kind of pot committed here. Avery Bradley, I believe, will get traded, and I believe that the price for him will be less than a first-round pick, and that's good because the Thunder cannot trade a first-round pick until 2022 because they owe a couple of them away, and there's trade rules. They do, however, have their second-round pick next year, which is what I think that they would like to trade. So. Can they get off of Alex Abrinas? Can they do the Clippers want Terrence Ferguson? These are the questions they have to ask themselves. But whether it's Avery Bradley or not, I do think that the Thunder are going to be a team that is trying to get a wing defender. And you're right, they obviously do not want to add payroll next year because they have Melo, they have Russell, they hope they have Paul George. Looking at that numbers, we're talking about historically high levels. But if you're already going to spend $150 million, what's the difference between spending $160 million? Because you've got to keep these guys together.
I know, you're talking about a team that's now well into the luxury tax
Big
that
time.
might not even make the conference finals out in the West. How much can
Might
Avery
not.
Bradley help them? Well, okay,
Well,
so you tell me.
I don't think they will make the conference finals, but I think Avery Bradley does definitely help them. It's no doubt about that because he is a lockdown defender, just like Andre is. But the matter of the fact is that he can't lock down 1 through 4, but he can lock down 1 and 2. And some threes in this league. And then on the offensive end, he gives you a guy who can make shots. There's no doubt about that. So, you know, he is definitely a two-way player. And I think if he can get, or if OKC can get him, it definitely helps their chances of being a much better team in the playoffs come this season.
The reason they are losing these national TV games is because national TV games are against good opponents.
Absolutely.
And whether they're on TV or not, the Cavs are losing to good opponents. Their record against winning teams when they play them is tragic. I think they have like 1 win against a team that had a winning record while they played them or something like that.
Since they beat the Celtics on opening night when
Right.
Gordon Hayward had that terrible injury, since then they are 0-8 against the top 6
There we go.
teams in the league.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
This is the national TV, but
again, national TV is just a stand-in for against good teams.
so what
right?
happens is let's just pull back the curtain here. The NBA backloads the national TV matchups till after the main part of the football season,
Right.
so that everybody's watching basketball. So early in the season, when the
Right.
Cavs were doing well, they weren't playing some of the premier teams because they weren't on national television. You get to Christmas, all of a sudden, here comes the national TV games. And by the way, you will see them straightforward on until June. There is no choice
Will
to
you
do this.
will you see them until
Well, you
June?
will see national TV games. Probably the Cavs will be on. It's a different story.
You won't see the Cavs and the way they're playing right now. You will not see them in June.
Well, so that's the question. After the latest blowout loss, Ty Lue questioned the Cavs' effort, and by the way, that's a very nice way of saying what he said, which was much stronger language. He said they didn't fight. He said their mindset needs to change. Well, Adrian Wojnarowski had a report right after that saying that Ty's job is safe. Where would you put the blame for Ty Lue in these struggles? Because Ty has said everyone has to be better.
Well, Ty has, in my opinion, not done a good job of instilling accountability for defense on this team. When you're 30th in defense, that's a catastrophe. And for you to have a catastrophe, you have to have several different levels of failures. There's a personnel issue, but Ty has not done a good job in that regard. Other things that are happening with this team, I don't put on Ty's doorstep. He is playing lineups right now that, frankly, I cannot comprehend. He is playing lineups that do not involve his best grouping of players. He is playing lineups that have been incredibly unsuccessful. And it has led me to wonder, is there an ulterior motive for why these lineups are being employed? Is he doing it because they're trying to do something for trade purposes? Is he doing it to keep some egos, handled? He's not playing the lineups that he has played during the season that have been successful. I cannot understand why. I asked him about it directly Saturday night in Cleveland. His answer to me was, if I were to play those lineups that were successful earlier, other guys would not play, and I don't want to go backwards. And my rebuttal is, what's happening now is not forwards.
Okay, so Byron, as a coach, do you get directed sometimes to play certain lineups? Obviously, we know for trade reasons that there are, hey, put this guy in tonight because we want to show him
I don't know
off.
for sure that's true, but I cannot cognitively have any other reason to think that he's putting out these lineups. There's got to be something else happening.
As a coach, I mean, obviously you're going to put out the best lineups you think can help you win basketball games. If I'm Ty, and I'm just saying if I'm Ty because I got 3 years left on about $20 million owed to me. If I'm getting it from somebody else to say you need to play these certain lineups, I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to give you the middle finger and say I'm going to play who I want to play. You know, that's the bottom line because I want to win as a coach. You want to win. And you're going to do everything in your power to win. So some of the blame, I think, has to go on ownership. And then I think there's some blame that has to go with LeBron James as well.
Of course.
You know, he is the main figurehead of this basketball team. And as much as he tells everybody that he's just a player, we all know that they talk to him about trades, about free agency, and everything else that has to do with building this team. So I'm pretty sure he's had his hand in on who he wants here and who he doesn't want here.
It has seemed that this year they have not talked to him about that stuff and that he has obviously not been happy about that, and we've seen some of it in his play. Now, it is interesting as we look at the Ty-LeBron dynamic. Ty successfully questioned and pushed LeBron in previous years. I don't know if he is able to do that this year. We'll have to see.